And the National Trust, for any Americans or any foreigners who might not necessarily know, there's two main organisations in Britain, English Heritage and the National Trust, that look after, basically are supposed to look after a lot of our heritage physically, the stately homes and the gardens, the landscaped parks, all things like this, palaces, various things. And so it's their job to have looked after those, and they've been doing that for over 120 odd years. It's sort of a Victorian thing originally, just wanted to preserve our history in many ways. When they were first established, one of the main tenets they gave themselves was to quote, promote the permanent preservation of lands and buildings of beauty or historic interest. So that's what the National Trust is supposed to be. That's what they're supposed to do. But as we were saying earlier, so many different organisations or parts of our culture and society have been taken over by wokists, and unfortunately English Heritage and the National Trusts are way up there, and it feeds into part of what you guys were talking about earlier in the week with the George Floyd. How would you describe how
cultural hysteria?
The cultural hysteria in Britain, specifically though in Britain, about George Floyd, and how it's nothing to do with our culture, nothing to do with our laws, our judiciary, nothing at all. And yet, for example, here in this picture in Liverpool, they put the lights up in Liverpool to commemorate.
Norwich did this, Rochdale did this, and then this is Liverpool as well, to commemorate the death of George Floyd.
And you said, wasn't it also the anniversary of Lee Rigby's?
Yeah, so it's the anniversary of Lee Rigby's beheading or the Manchester Arena
and
bombing.
the Manchester Arena.
Neither of them are important, but
Right.
George Floyd's death in a foreign country under circumstances that are not relevant to the UK, far more important.
Criminal drug addict George Floyd. Yeah, so let's commemorate his killing. I hesitate to call it a murder. His killing. There's another one with what's the other link there? We've got the London Eye. Also, London, of course, had to get in on it.
I mean, all these areas run by Labour.
Yeah.
So that's why.
Yeah, Sadiq Khan. Yeah. So, and just this thing that we're sort of, I don't know if it's actually definitely true, but the perception that we're ever more abandoning our own culture and history and heritage for the sake of weirdo American wokist culture. And anyway, the National Trust has come in for some criticisms. Their leader, well, the president is actually Prince Charles, but the sort of the leader of it was a bloke called Tim Parker. And it looks like he is going to resign. He won't be out until October, but it looks like he's going to resign because of a grassroots. I wouldn't say insurrection. The National Trust are very much more civilised than that.
Is it normal people getting rid of him?
Basically, members,
Okay.
yeah, sort of, yeah. And so, because he's been described as a bourgeois and politically correct, which is just the tip of the iceberg, really. I mean, he seems to be that same sort of mentality as the people were talking about in the Home Office there, where to you or I, it's almost inexplicable. Why are you betraying your own so hard? It's just odd.
Yeah, you have one job in this case to protect Britain's heritage, being the National Trust, and yet
Right,
I've got more important things to do. Culture wars for America.
Yeah, right. We're supposed to be looking after stately homes in the home counties, but let's have him say something about BLM, which he did. He called it a human rights movement with no party political affiliations. Apparently left it at that. That's his description of BLM.
So this is the next link, the National Trust thing.
Right, so yeah, here's just an article, because it is actually in the news right now. I haven't picked something just completely out of left field. It is actually relevant today, so there's a Daily Mail article there.
So he's quit, he's actually gone now.
Well, it says he won't leave until October. He'll sort of see out his term or something. But yeah, I think he has formally resigned. So yeah, he was apparently also, he did also say on record that he is, and the National Trust under his leadership is, quote, committed to anti-racism and to creating a diverse, inclusive and welcoming environment.
Yeah, whatever, socialist.
So all the buzzwords.
Yeah, I'm a socialist. That's what he's saying there.
Committed to anti-racism, so less whites, just please, working for us and visiting, just less whites.
He's not committed to ending racism or even minimising it. No, he's committed to anti-racism, which is just left-wing racism. That's all that is.
A few other bits and bobs, just like he wanted people to wear badges or lanyards or something like that with the rainbow thing on it.
I thought you were going to say that pronoun.
Just anything and everything to sort of to undermine us, really. And so, yeah, what they also did not too long ago, I think it was last year, sort of summer or autumn last year, is they released a big report. And there it is. The report is Addressing Our Histories and Colonialism and Historic Slavery. There's a longer, fuller name to it than that. But anyways,
Sorry,
again,
how do they plan on addressing it?
Or is it even within their remit? I thought you were supposed
This has
to
happened
make sure...
in the past, and what, they're going to...
Well, what it actually is just pouring scorn on us and our history and our heritage at every possible turn, and really scraping the bottom of the barrel as well. So people don't necessarily have to read it particularly. They'll pick out. I mean, the National Trust is supposed to look after a few hundred properties, and they picked out about 93 that they, in inverted commas, blacklisted, which is something nearly like a third of all of them. Okay, now some of them, even though it's an anachronism and complete insanity, some of these buildings were built entirely from the profits of slavery. Okay, so whatever, but that is the fact. But the vast majority of them, it's just nothing like that. Like, for example, one of them it's a property that Rudyard Kipling used to live in. What's Rudyard Kipling's crime? Well, he wrote a few poems that were pro empire. That's his crime. That's why that building now is blacklisted, in inverted commas. Another one, for example, it belonged to Wordsworth, the poet Wordsworth. And not a famous racist or bigot, but what it was, his brother was the commander of an East India ship at one point. So, scraping the bottom of the barrel. I mean, really scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Not even things that people have done. Your brother did a thing.
Yeah, or loads of them. If you look through the list, loads of them are like, this property was briefly owned in like the 18th century by someone who inherited money that was made out of sugar interests from Barbados or Jamaica or something. So it's like, so someone owned it a bit who didn't do anything but inherited some money that came off the back of exploitation. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, what are they going to do?
It's an insanity that's going on.
What are they going to
here.
do with these places anyway?
Right. Well, a friend of mine did point out that perhaps, I've been a card-carrying member of the National Trust a couple of times in my life. I'm not anymore at the moment. But it does seem that the membership is very white and quite old, and that they're probably they're probably losing a lot of money and members. And so somewhere in the top brass at the National Trust, you can only imagine they made the decision, well, we need to diversify. We need to make it more appealing to BAME people. At the expense of whites, obviously, because that's how it works. It's a zero-sum game, apparently, in their mind.
Yeah, to leftists,
so,
that's the entire world.
Yeah. So it's just the National Trust, just the thing that is supposed to, like I keep saying, protect or hold a lot of our heritage in trust. You can imagine the Victorians and every generation of National Trust people up until recently, it's been held in trust for us for future generations, and it's simply been subverted, perverted, inverted, just really quick and really hard. And if it looks like this guy at least is going to get the boot, but there are other people that are high up in it that are just the same. There's the General Secretary, a woman called Hilary McGrady, an Irish lady who seems very, very disingenuous and pretends they aren't doing anything wrong at the National Trust, when obviously they are. I mean, there was the MP Hayes, is it John Hayes? He said that the National Trust has sadly lost sight of its purpose. It is preoccupied with the prejudices of a woke minority. Seems perfectly correct, doesn't it? That seems to be what's happening. And but as I say, just an element of a white pill in there amongst this red pill is just that the Restore Trusts, this movement within the National Trust, Restore Trust. Look like they've sort of got their act together quite well. I'd like to speak to somebody from that organisation. Apparently, the guy mentioned in the Daily Mail articles, a bloke called Tony Adler. He said, for example, the plan is to change the whole ethos formally, talking about the National Trust. Their plan, Restore Trusts, is to change the whole ethos formally and to get rid of the chairman, which it seems like they've been successful in doing. There has been a sea change in the Trust's philosophy, and they have lost sight of their charter. Yeah, well said. No doubt. No doubt that's true. And as I mentioned before, that what I think is the disingenuous General Secretary did say that it was a mistake, that they made a mistake in releasing this nearly 120-page report. I hesitate to just call her an out-and-out liar. I think disingenuous is closer because how is it a mistake exactly? What do you mean? You accidentally commissioned a 120-page report which goes into detail.
I tripped and fell and wrote 120 pages.
Yeah, I accidentally fell and signed off on that and greenlit it, yeah. Just nonsense. I don't trust her as far as I can throw her. So that seems to be what's going on with the National Trust, and just hopefully that things can be reversed there to some degree.
I love how the chat is pointing out the blacklisting word there, because if they're blacklisting properties as being anti-slavery, do you know the word blacklist has been banned? It's a racist term, don't you know?
Or one of these properties, one of these houses, which is apparently bad now, is that in
The house is bad.
Yeah.
What's the house do?
Yeah, the landscaped gardens around the country estate are bigoted or something. Because one of them, it was really the thing that they said why it was marked up as any sort of problem is that in their inventories from the 19th century, it mentioned a couple of their black servants. They were referred to as blackamoors. In the 19th century, when there was no problem with using that word, but now that's just beyond the pale. Apparently, that happened a couple hundred years ago.
I don't understand. Like in the 19th century, someone said the N-word, therefore we must give up all our money. Is that the argument?
Apparently, there was a guy. I can't remember the guy's name. He was in NASCAR, and his father had said the N-word in the 1960s, and apparently not even in a derogatory context, although I'm not sure. But his father had said the N-word decades and decades and decades ago. It had been rediscovered that was a fact, and he got fired. He lost his seat in that race car.
But you just want to meet every woke person average to be like, don't you know your great-great-granddad said the N-word? Therefore you're guilty.
And we want an apology immediately for it. Yeah. Otherwise we'll take away your income. Well, so hopefully there is a slight element of a white pill to it. That it does seem that at least within the National Trust there are people with guts and determination and a bit of nous that are actually pushing back and at least marginally successful in doing so. So good luck to them. Good luck to them, I say.
If you enjoyed this segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can watch the full broadcast live every weekday at 1 p.m. UK time on lotuseaters.com.